Hey everybody, so right now we're going to take this animation that I made inside of Blender by combining a variety of Mixamo animations, and we're going to use some more advanced camera techniques on it, which I personally find just vamp up the entire production of my animations. And what we're going to do is we're going to use something called a curve. Curves are wonderful. If you're familiar with Illustrator, where you're using vectors and you're using Bezier curves to be able to kind of create more complex shapes, curves do this wonderfully. And not only do they allow us to be able to create curved shapes, but they also allow us to be able to create particular paths for objects, cameras, lights. So we're going to be talking about this more in the future, but let's go ahead to the beginning of our animation. I'm just on my dope sheet right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a curve. I'm going to create a Bezier curve. And first off, I'm just going to RZ90. And I am going to start to think about this in terms of where I want my camera to move. I know that my character goes up to here, and then they dance a little bit. So I think what I want is I want my Bezier curve to kind of follow them from the ground, move further up towards their face as it gets to here, kind of turning back towards them. And then, as they get to this point, I want it to turn around, and I want it to kind of pan out a little bit more as they're starting to dance. Great. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing I need to do is go into edit mode for my Bezier curve, and you'll see it looks a little different than some of the meshes that we're used to inside of Blender. But if I click on any point, you'll be able to see I can rotate it, I can grab it, and I can even scale it in a way that is somewhat familiar. And when I scale here, you'll see that I am increasing the radius of that curve. So right now, I know I want the camera to start there, and I want to get to about here, but I want the camera to be a little bit further away, so I'm going to move this over here. I also want it to be further up. I kind of want it to be at eye level at that point, if not a little bit further. Yeah, something like that feels pretty good. Maybe a little bit further away. Great. And then the dance happens, so I want the camera to be able to come over here. And I bet you're saying, Duncan, we only have 2 points. What are you doing? What are you talking about? How could you suggest that we would be able to do this? Just like meshes and just like other objects in Blender, like bones, we can extrude another vertice out of this vertice simply by clicking it and pressing E. And look at that. Isn't that wonderful? I think so. So let's go ahead. Let's rotate this so that it is a little bit more of an organic curve. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to scale this a little bit, and I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to make that a little bit more eye level right there. I'm going to rotate this. You kind of have to approach this from a variety of different angles, particularly because these Bezier curves are a little bit more challenging to conceptualize in 3D space. So I'm often just kind of going back and forth. And yeah, this seems like a good motion for my character. In fact, I think I want to move this back a little bit, so I'm going to make that. Okay, so we have this nice swoop that the camera is going to follow. First off, I've deleted my camera, so let me go ahead and create a new one. Going into object mode, pressing Shift A, going to camera. You'll see that I have a camera here. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my camera and I'm going to say, okay, great. I have a location of 0, 0, 0. I also want a rotation of 0, 0, 0. Because we're going to be adding this camera to this path of a Bezier curve, and we really want to make sure that it doesn't have any pre-programmed coordinates. Great. Now I'm going to go to my path, and let's go and click on the data properties window. You'll see a few different things. We're not going to talk about adding kind of like bulk to these paths just yet. You can make these paths 3D. A few things that I want you to see. So the resolution. The resolution for a path is pretty important. And as you see, as I go down, we only have a few points. As I go up, we have a good amount of points. I'm going to go to something like 24. I could go higher. You'll see that it's very smooth. This makes sure that it interpolates between points smoothly without kind of getting a bumpiness. And we'll talk about some of these other parameters later. Now what I want to go and do is I want to select my camera and I want to go to constraints. This is the first time that we are learning about constraints. And so what these are is they allow objects to move in interesting ways next to each other. It's not modifying a mesh, but it is constraining objects and their movement and how they interact with each other. In this case, what I am going to do is I am going to add a constraint that is called follow path. And I'm assuming you're gonna guess what I'm gonna be able to do. I'm going to click the target that I want to follow, and oh my god, it immediately snaps onto here, and I see it doing nothing. Okay, totally fine. First off, I will go ahead and press animate path, and let's see what happens now. Oh my god, it is starting to work, but it's going in the entirely wrong way, and it's going at the wrong speed. I don't like any of this. Okay, don't worry. We're on the right path right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my path animation over here. And I got to here by clicking on my Bezier curve, going into the data properties window, and you'll see that there is this animation path that I can keyframe. So I could keyframe the locations of the camera on this Bezier curve, which would be really wonderful because then I would be able to time it up with the animation. The only thing is, you'll see that this is already animated. And I don't know why this gets added automatically, but there is an automatic modifier that is added onto this that we're going to have to go ahead and get rid of. It's somewhat frustrating. The way I can do this is by clicking this curve, going over to the graph editor. Remember the graph editor? We haven't used it in class for a little bit of time. And over here, you'll see I can choose F-curve, modifiers, and view. And you'll see that there is a generator for an expanded polynomial right here. I imagine this is the modifier that allows it to be able to continue off the curve once the animation is finished. And this way, it kind of has an organic transition. But that's not really what we want. It makes our life more challenging. And so in that case, we don't need it. I'm going to go back to Dope Sheet right here so that I can actually edit this out. And let's go to the first frame of my animation. Perfect. And let's get this to the appropriate place for my first frame of the animation. I want it to be right around there. Perfect. And I know the camera is not looking at our target just yet. Don't worry about it. We will have the opportunity to play around with this, but let's just focus on this right here. So where do I want my camera to be when this is taking place? I think I want my camera to be around here when this is taking place, and then I want my camera to move kind of quickly when this happens. So I'm going to get to here. I'm going to move my camera up there. So I'm going to move this, move over here. No, I don't want it that far to the side. I want it like there. Perfect. I'm going to press I. And now we have that turn. And that turn will be perfect. So I want to make sure that it really kind of jumps over here. Maybe a little bit further. Yeah, like over there. And then I want to have this slowly go in for the rest of the animation. So I can just kind of move this along the path and get it to go right there. Wonderful. And let's see if this is working the way we want it to. Okay, that's a little abrupt. And I think you'll notice what the problem is here. Let's go ahead and click on all these keyframes. And I'm actually going to go into a different interpolation mode because right now we have easing on, and I do not want that. I want linear interpolation mode. Perfect. That's pretty good. So if you are having that problem where it seems like it's like easing out, make sure that you highlight all of your keyframes, right click it and click interpolation mode and go to linear. Because we're not trying to ease between these places. These are destinations that we want the camera to be able to get to by that point. Great. So now let's get this camera to actually look at the character. So I'm going to go back to constraints. I'm going to click on my camera, and I'm going to add another constraint, this one being track 2. And it seems pretty wonderful. I can actually just click this eyedropper, and I can click onto my character. And let's go ahead and see how this is looking so far. Whoa, starting with the feet and panning. Okay, so this is great. I know that I like that, but I needed to be able to zoom out a little bit further by then. So I can do a few things. I can change the Bezier curve, or I can actually go ahead and change some of my camera settings. In this case, I like the focal length there. Maybe I can bring that out a little bit, and I'm going to also change this. Okay, that's starting to look pretty good. And now, okay, well now we have that jump. And first off, I want to bring the Y down a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead, and as this is going on, I actually want to zoom into the character a little bit. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to get to the end right here, and I'm just going to zoom in, and I'm going to bring this up a little bit, and let's go ahead and see that. Let's see how this looks. Oh my God, this is looking pretty good. So combining these two techniques together, both in using your camera settings, using the Bezier curves, using the track 2, can work really, really wonderfully in terms of setting up these nice flowing tracks. So excited to see how you use this. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.